Welcome back. Okay, now we move on to our next panel this evening, and our panel topic is going to be the future tech landscape and digital transformation. And your panel outlines would be how smart can the world actually get? How is digital transformation affecting the whole ecosystem? Boundaries and ethics and challenges brought about by the new technologies. Your panelists on the stage right now, Dr. Ibrahim Gedeon, CTO from TELUS, Mr. Rui Frazao, CTO B-yond, Mr. Jose Luis Lopez Villen, Director of Open Innovation and IoT Partnerships, Program from Etisalat, Mr. Safder Nazir, Regional Vice President, Digital Industry Strategy, Huawei, Mr. Ghazi Atallah, CEO for NXN, Mr. John Michael Holzberg, Head of CVM Big Data and Digital Marketing, Vodafone Group, and your moderator from Centrigent, your CEO, Mr. J. Srage.
Okay, so just to get started, I would like to thank you for making it to the late night shift of this panel, and really we're gonna try to make it quite specific so that you guys can actually keep up till the end of the day ahead of dinner. So digital transformation is quite, I would say it's an old new topic that's been addressed and talked about quite a bit. So what we want to do here is more focus on the specifics and the tangible progress that's been made and how we view the next 12 months or 24 months in that transformation. So maybe just to start, we give you 1 or 2 minutes to be brief, to give just from your perspective and your positions, what you have seen in terms of progress in the last 12 months, in terms of digital transformation, and your view of how it's going to change in the next 12 months when it comes to the landscape of the telecom industry. So we start with you, and then we just...
Okay, we go around. So I've been in this industry for 20 years, been on both sides, so on the vendor innovation side as well as on the operator side. And I must say I'm disappointed with the speed of digital transformation in this industry. We've been talking about making that happen. I've seen some shy progresses when it comes to customer care and customer experience management. But if we compare that with an Amazon or any other player in the new digital era, we're still very much behind. We tend to talk about how complex it is, how hard it is, more than spending the time to actually overcome those hurdles.
So how do you see it in the next 12 months?
Sorry?
Do you see any change in that progress rate in the next 12 months?
Well, I hope so. So we're part of that, and we're trying to drive some of that transformation ourselves with our customers. We do see the willingness and the intention to go there, but still I see a lot of hurdles, which probably relate to the fact that we still have the same people doing the same jobs for the last 15, 20 years. So we're trying to push technology, but actually we need to develop and evolve those people and the processes alongside. So the transformation, digital transformation, is not just tools, it's tools, people, and processes.
Great. Jan?
What I've seen in the past 12 months is a shift change. A shift change from looking at digital transformation purely from a cost savings and efficiency perspective to an increased focus on what it really means in terms of an end customer experience. What we see is that customers are not loyal to brands anymore. Customers are loyal to experiences. So now if you think about what role digital transformation really plays is to link the two. Right now we have an opportunity which is data. Yeah, data is essentially the oil, if you wish, of the 21st century. And having smart analytics in place, and this is certainly what I've seen in the Vodafone Group in the past 12 months, and then turning these smart analytics into insights, and these insights then into an experience that is more personal. That is really the trend that I've seen in the last 12 months. So I summarize it in really one concept. For me, digital transformation for the end user is personalization. So the opportunity to move from a overall generic experience that customers have with us today to a personal, more engaging, more emotional relation that we can have with our customers.
So basically the consumer experience is adapting and catching up faster than the technologies in terms of the network side?
Yeah, particularly because we already have a lot of capabilities in place. to leverage the touch points and to transform them in a more customer-centric way and to provide experiences where customers would actually say, okay, wow, that is different from what the competition has to offer, what I've experienced from my service provider in the past. And these moments of truth that previously I think were living on PowerPoint, now they're happening. And actually we have seen some of these examples today. And I guess the breakthrough that we are seeing is moving away from these technology-led discussions into how are we applying the status quo of the technology to provide a better experience.
Okay. Safder.
So if we look at the enabling technologies behind digital transformation and the fourth industrial revolution or 4IR technologies, 5G is the main topic of the day. And last year, in fact around October last year at GITEX 2018, we were just talking in terms of concept. So we'd launched a 5G white paper about the use cases in industry and so on. But a year later, we're seeing it for real. It really does exist. Something flickering behind me maybe. It's really there. So that's what I can say is the biggest change in the last 12 months. We've gone from talking about something quite transformative in terms of theory into reality. And I'm sure this morning there was some good discussion around 5G and availability. And in terms of the next 12 months, I see that moving from just personal use cases to more industry application. Right now there are some industry use cases, but I think that will grow significantly in the coming years.
Great.
So I think that when it comes to digital transformation, I think it's relevant in the sense that it's relevant for people's lives. So I'm talking about transformation here in this city has a special meaning since this is an example of sustainable transformation along the years. And I think that one of the keys for that is going to run and accelerate the digital transformation is going to be how the big companies are going to help and support the small companies to be part of the ecosystem and to accelerate the adoption of that new technology. Of course, the big companies have that responsibility to bring, let's say, to create the highways of the digital transformation. But in order to have a proper highway, we need to help and support those small companies that are bringing disruptive ideas. Well, next year we have in Dubai, we have the Expo 2020. That is a great opportunity to put different cultures and put different, let's say, ways of, cultures, religions, etc., all together in one city. And I think that what we have to do and our responsibility also is to be also that, let's say, meeting point for different technologies and different let's say, disruptive ideas that can contribute to make people's life a bit easier and more. Yeah.
So Ghazi, you're probably in the best position to give us the progress in terms of market adoption or market uptake. So what's your thoughts?
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Well, I mean, there's not much else to say other than what the other members, colleagues have said. I think, we're in the digital age. We're supposed to be in the agile and nimble age. We're supposed to be in the age where you can take a problem and apply technology to it and get to a specific outcome very quickly. I think what we've done with digital transformation has created a big elephant, which is not necessarily what the digital age should be like. So we always talk to, customers and partners and so on and say, let's find that problem and let's apply technology to it, get to a specific outcome as fast as possible. And that's what the digital age is supposed to be about. Whether you're applying it towards a customer engagement scenario or productivity or innovation and product development or whatever problem you're trying to apply it to and whatever specific outcome. So our thinking is always, let's be specific to what is the problem, what technology you're applying, what digital technology you're applying towards that problem, and what specific outcome do you want to achieve so that you can come up with actual results fairly quickly so that it can build upon that and actually grow. And that's what we've seen is companies do a lot more than embarking on a humongous digital transformation program, which is likely to fail or delay or actually not deliver the right outcome.
Yes.
I mean, there's not much to add, to be honest. The only thing I find with digital transformations is people do what they're doing today, but digitally. So I get a reminder when I came out of school, I was a Fortran guy. And then they taught me C, so I used C to write Fortran. And then they taught me C++, so I used C++ to write Fortran. So what I find is everybody does digital transformation by taking what they've got and make it digital. And we fell through that trick. We spent probably $500 million doing what we have with a new language. And I think the challenge we have is we need a digital model, like when Jane talked about the digital twin. It's very critical to say, how are we transforming the business with that digital data? And I think we all touched upon it. And we need young blood, or blood from a different cross-domain, and that's one challenge. The other challenge, and I'll open it up to the panel, is everybody has their own definition. So the kiss of death is everyone has a budget. So the marketing person has a digital transformation budget. Johan's nodding his head. He's got a digital transformation budget. I have a digital transformation budget. So if you look at a company, everybody's got a friggin' digital transformation budget that doesn't talk to each other. So actually, we've taken the mess of today but made it digital. So it goes back to Ghazi's issue. So I think we need to look at a digital model. What does our subscriber look like? What does our employee look like? What experience do we want to take them through? So that's, I overtalked, but those are two fundamental issues.
This is a good segue. This is a very good segue to the next question for you, which is, then if you're going to use digital transformation technologies that are available today with the existing network and tools that you have today, then what is your prioritization? I mean, because you hear AI and data analytics and digital platforms and all of that. So how do you prioritize, and how does it impact your decisions on network topologies?
I was talking with Johan about something similar yesterday, and we're clicking at 19 minutes and 11 seconds. But one of our challenges that we're facing is privacy. Yep. So the engineer in me is so happy to get the carrier to call me saying, you just had a shitty experience. Let me refund you or let me do it. In Canada, we got sued for privacy when we did such a system. So I think what impacts our topology is the model that we're spending a lot of time on the governance. What does the subscriber look like? And I think we've nailed it. We have to buy a tool, and then there's a bit of carrot and stick. So I don't know about my colleagues in the other telcos, but we had to force it. Yani, some people we took some funds away, we doubled some funds to force a single model, because everybody will slice the customer based on what they see. The operations people, you're an MZ. The CRM people, you're an unhappy customer.
That's correct. So then from a technology perspective, which takes us then to the market perspective and the consumer. So we go into 5G, we go into these new technologies being implemented. So Jan, from your view, how does that really change your offering to the consumer? I mean, you mentioned personalization, but how do you effectively do it?
Yeah, so the first thing I would like to do, and building on the comments here, is I would like to remind us of the most important currency that we have, which is trust. So we just spoke about privacy. Yeah, so digital transformation means that we will have a new MarTech stack at our disposition to, one, provide a new experience, as we discussed, but two, also to do that in a way that permissions, preferences, and privacy of the consumer is respected. And certainly in Europe, we have seen with regulations like GDPR that there's a regulatory framework for that, but that doesn't apply to all of the markets where we are active. So I think the most important thing for all of us is to have a really clear framework on how we operate, and that we are transparent with the end consumer of how are we using the data, for what purpose, and essentially earning the consumer's trust by giving the consumer control. And I think you have seen some precedents in the industry where a few who get increasingly innovative ruin it for all of us, because once we lose that trust, we lose the baseline to mine our biggest commodity, which is the data. So maybe that was a slight build on what you said before. Now, from a shift change perspective, I think for me, the new world looks actually very different. I only have two types of customers: unidentified customers and identified customers in my new world, in my new marketing world. Yeah? Because from a social media perspective and from the public domain, I'm already able to get profiles that allow me to target customers to increase my gross ads and have a higher conversion. And of course, I have my existing base of customers where the colleagues in tech can provide an increasing amount of data points that allow me to send them the right offer at the right point in time via the right channel. And by the way, that does not always need to be the mobile app, but that could also be a traditional channel like a telesales call or a visit to the store. The personalization really materializes in relevance. So you as a consumer, if you have a touch point in the future, what you will feel is a more relevant and more targeted experience than before.
Okay, excellent. So basically then, when you take that kind of personalization and the vast amount of data that's available now to the telecom operator as well as the city, when in case of implementing a digital platform that's able to act as a gateway for all that data that's coming in, then it starts to overlap in a way. So Ghazi, maybe you're pointing to how does that personalization and data analytics would impact the type of services, for example, a city can provide, and how do you see the role of operators in that landscape?
So just to answer the first part of the question, certainly, answering the data problem, because this is an area that you need to actually take care of. You need to figure out what to do with data, organize it, prepare it, and then start using data analytics and data science on. So once this problem is answered, and this is not an easy problem to answer, then of course, personalizing, looking at analytics, in the case of transactional use cases, cities are actually allowing you to digitally get your driver's license or digitally get an apartment, et cetera, et cetera. These are transactional type digital use cases, and these are now relatively easy to do. Most cities are offering them, certainly here in Dubai and elsewhere. Then the other part is the actual insight. So using the data to deliver on insights or looking at your city differently. So taking all sorts of data and combining it together and saying, am I building the right type of development in this area? Or do I have the right roads? Do I have the right, am I answering my questions, my problems by augmenting the roads rather than understanding who are the people that are going from point A to point B at what time and so on. So using data to actually come up with more interesting answers and then go back and make decisions around the city. And this is where we see the different types of data uses. How can telecom operators play a role? Clearly they have a...
Sorry, I don't want to disrupt the flow. I think one of the key challenges we have is we don't respect each other.
Who we? Who do you mean by we?
On an identity level. So before people get insulted here, let me be very clear what I'm talking about. So if you look at the city of Dubai, or let me be Canadian. Let's talk about Toronto or Montreal. The city owns their own data. They don't think of peering with the telco. Because you know what, the telco does their own stuff, we do our own stuff. The telco does not peer with the supermarket. So if we're thinking of digital, then digital at multi-layers, like different kind of peering between the banks and the telcos and the government, I think that's the critical challenge, because what Ghazi and Jan talked about, we have multiple personas. If our personas interact, it would reduce the bullshit, well, the overhead technically, but more importantly, it'll enable all these B2B2C. They talk about B2B2C in terms of I provide you. Like if you look at the Fairmont, for example, if you go to the hotel, I don't know about the one here, but in Canada, if you have the app, it'll tell you who you are when you walk in, you can check in. You opt into it. That should be our whole world when we talk about a digital transformation. But the city either opens it up and you do all the work, but they don't peer. And we, the telcos in turn, don't treat the city and others with respect. Oh, you're a supermarket, why should I care? But if you go to a supermarket anywhere around the world, at least in Canada, they ask you what's your phone number so they can get your identity. But they don't peer with me, it was opt-in. So I think we, as when we talk about a digital transformation, we need to think of the models where we engage each other. So for example, I will share with Jan all the info I have because he is a peer, or it's a peer. If I get something that's higher on the identity authority, like a bank or a government, they will share half of what they've got. I will share everything. And I think we need that we never really dealt it up as an industry.
Yeah.
So I look at, I'm not flattering these guys. They have a great platform, but it's missing that piece. And it's not because of them. They'd build it. They're geeks, right? It's the, you can't operationalize it. Sorry to...
No, but actually this is a good transition, because could it be this lack of trust is coming from the fact that the ecosystem is changing? The city or the supermarket didn't need to trust the telecom operator before. And the operator didn't need to deal with the pharmacies and retailers before. So question to Hussein now, who's actually in the heart of creating the ecosystems for Etisalat. Maybe we should bridge the question into how do you see the ecosystem changing from the traditional model, and how do you see now working with, as Etisalat, working with the city of Dubai, working with vendors and platform providers like NXN, and there are also the solution providers that bring in the technology like B-yond. So actually here we've got the representatives, a small representation from the ecosystem with Huawei and B-yond and NXN, and you've got the operators.
Yeah, well, I think that the telco industry has been shifted for the last years when it comes to digital transformation and providing digital services. I think that all the telcos that are here, all the panelists, we have invested a lot of money to provide new services, to provide new, let's say, experiences on top of the connectivity. And we have created very, very good products. And I think that some other product has been disrupted by companies that were not related to anything on telco, meaning who disrupted the music industry. So it was not a telco, it was Spotify, who created Netflix. So I think that there has to be a balance between the services and that trust that is so important that we can provide to our clients, and those services coming from third parties that can actually bring not only differentiation, but also take advantage of that highway that I was describing before, where we can put together clients and that new technology, that innovative ideas.
Okay, great. So, Safder, then to you in this case, I mean, when we're talking about now the expansion of digital transformation, that it impacts every industry. We're saying 5G is going to be the turning point, not just for consumers, but for enterprise and the economy. It cannot all happen at the same time. So how do you prioritize, and what do you see in terms of market acceptance of digital transformation, the priorities of these industries?
Sure. So it is a big topic, and I found what Ibrahim said quite funny in that if you take a process and make it go faster with technology, it doesn't make it smart necessarily, which is absolutely right. And if we look at the digital transformation from the top to bottom, so you've got countries talking about national digital transformation, having digital strategies. You've also got countries in the region who have got AI strategies as one of the other key enabling technologies for AI, the fourth industrial revolution. And so from a national level, and when they're trying to transform industries and sectors, there's a lot happening in the public sector part, where it's primarily driven by improving service and reducing cost, right? So there's a big drive and opportunity for operators there as well to be able to address that market, and that's something that we've done our own analysis on, and of course there's opportunity to address that. And again, it depends on where the operators want to play in terms of the value chain, right? What do you want to provide along the way of that? So beyond that, you've then got to also understand that there's what was known as the sharing economy. So things like Uber and so on, where trust, identity, and payment are very important. So there's a role for operators to play in ensuring that Uber is very familiar and popular, but there's other things like JobRabbit and things like that, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but if you buy your furniture from IKEA, instead of having to assemble it yourself, you can hire somebody from JobRabbit to come to your home and assemble it for you, right? But that requires what? It requires identity and trust to know that this person's going to come into my home. He really has the rating of a 5-star assembler of furniture, that he can come and do that for me. And I think that's part of the overall digital transformation. It's enabled by some of these technologies. So there's things that can be addressed on that side. Part of it also you ask about, are people ready for it? And how do we train people? Well, I don't think it really needs a lot of convincing, because it's primarily driven by what was a long time ago called business process re-engineering, right? And changing the way things are done to a better way, and then using the available technology to make it better. So it's just an evolution in that sense, in terms of from an industry perspective, what are the available technologies for me to be able to improve my situation and reduce my costs, improve my service, improve my revenue, and so on. So I think it's just that natural evolutionary step if we don't get too carried away with the wonderful technologies which are available. They are enablers for us to do something.
So how do you see a direct then relationship with the industry between a vendor, or what is the future role for the operator in that ecosystem?
Well, I think for the operators, they've got to understand that, yes, the business is changing and they have to get out there. So for all of the 5G type use cases and so on, for anything like that, is perhaps a different, I'm not sure, maybe, well, actually, different operators have different levels of success when it comes to B2B, and they can actually talk about that better than I can. But I spend a lot of time with the industry and industry leaders, and in the last month I've spoken to senior executives in oil and gas, healthcare, education, and government, right? All of which have had on an agenda of digital transformation. And all of them have a need. So they spend a lot of money generally with great strategy consultants, but those plans, translating those plans into execution is where the challenge comes, right? And making sure that it's a coordinated plan. And so this is where we believe we can help with a lot of that. And I would encourage the operators, if they want to help, they need to be able to have those type of conversations and help them execute, because they're looking for help.
Okay, so actually this goes back to your comment about the progress not being fast enough, maybe attributed to one of these factors. So you mentioned that, I'll ask you an easy question. You mentioned you want to fix it in the next 12 months. So what is your plan for fixing it?
Well, that's actually not an easy question.
Yeah, no, that's what
So we don't want to fix it, so we want to help moving things forward. And this is an industry cooperation. And I think you mentioned, well, there's lack of cooperation across different industries, but there's also lack of cooperation within the industry or even within organizations. I think it's a fact known that most of you know that even within a telco, the data that the marketing departments have and the data that the technology departments have is not shared. So how do you manage a network for customers when you're not sharing that information? And how do you manage customers on a network when that information is not shared? So I think that what we're trying to do is we're trying to, on one side, we're trying to educate that there's different ways and different tools that can help. Today, there was a lot of discussion about 5G, and that 5G is going to transform everything, and 5G is going to be automated, and so on. You don't need 5G to do that automation and to run your networks better. You can do it today. You actually need that automation for 5G. So you better start today, because it's not a switch on, switch off, but it's a transformation in terms of which tools you can use, and how you need to train your people to use those tools, how to put new control mechanisms in place. And that's what we're here about. We're here to bring those tools and be the partner with our customers to go through that journey. We are an AI company. Many people think, okay, you bring some intelligence that you put there and then it's intelligent from day one. It's not. Artificial intelligence tools are helping, but you still need to train them. You need to adjust them, adapt them to a business, and then you take it from there. So once they are at the same level as your teams and tools, then that's when the benefits start coping. And this is what we're trying to bring into the ecosystem, into our partners, both self-tools as well as the partnership to help them evolve their skill sets and their processes.
So let me ask you a follow-on question. The space of automation has become actually quite crowded in the last couple of years. You have quite a few companies. So what differentiates, and they're all saying we are great for 5G. So what do you think differentiates one from another?
Well, so traditional automation is just, you take what people are doing manually and typically find those repetitive tasks, easy tasks, and then you just automate that. You put a machine doing those repetitive tasks. So you're just doing more of the same. Faster. And if you were doing it right, with the right rules, great. If you're doing it wrong, you're just doing it wrong faster. And the biggest motivation has been cost savings, not doing it better. Now, when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's bringing tools that even though you're not using them to fully automate from the beginning, it starts giving you different perspectives and different ways of doing it, which you can validate if those are valid or not. And then those tools will continuously learn. So today, you're just taking the learning that exists in the industry, you're taking the subject matter expert knowledge, creating rules, automating those, and just taking those forward.
Okay. So, Ibrahim, since we're talking now about artificial intelligence, we talk about you now. You're talking about digital transformation and all of that, yet, and 5G and everything going in that direction, yet we still have 2G. What's up with that? I mean, how can we talk about AI and the network becoming totally independent, yet you still have a network from 1991?
So I don't have that problem.
3G. Why do we still have 3G?
But I think we were great at putting new stuff in. We're very bad at taking stuff out. And I think at TELUS, we proactively actually bought our 3G customers. And we had, as you know, CDMA for a very long time. We forced them. We shut the network down and paid them money. And some of them went to Rogers, our competitor, or to Bell. I think we don't do a good job retiring, but Jay, to your point, and I think it was mentioned a couple of times, I think we're going to need AI because every new network has enough technology nuances that if we don't invest in something smarter than our people, we can't afford because the revenue per bit is dropping. Even though the cost for the vendors, thank you, all our vendors, but the revenue per bit is dropping faster than the cost per bit. That being the case, 5G, we cannot afford new people. We need less of the current people and smarter. So AI is a must. To me, it's a tool. But I go back to, Rui said it very elegantly. I say shit in, shit out. Like if you digitize stuff that doesn't work, you're just going to get more of the stuff that doesn't work in a faster way. So I think we need to use some models. And one of the challenges with the vendors, including B-yond, and Huawei, you think it's an add-on. For us, it's a must. Like you're charging us for the steering wheel. It's not an option to me in the car. So vendors have to start thinking when operators want to drive the car, they might want the steering wheel included. This is my 2 cents.
So if it's a must, Ghazi, what do you think that's going to be, what are the challenges in terms of integrating AI into the platform and then getting the adoption by either the government services or by the operators?
I don't see that as a problem because we go back to what we said in the beginning. There's a specific problem, you're applying a specific technology, and you have a specific outcome. So it's a straightforward kind of application of AI, and I think that's going to become more and more relevant and more prevalent across industry. I go back to the data problem. You know, we used to say a couple of years ago at NXN that data is the fuel, kind of like what our colleagues are saying. We say now data is the problem, not the fuel. Data is the problem. If you cannot solve the data, if you cannot get your data organized, you don't know what kind of data you have, you can't get that organized, standardized, you don't have the right sharing mechanisms across key stakeholders. You know, technology team doesn't talk to the marketing team. This is a single organization. Think about a city. We engage with many governments across the region, and the municipality obviously does not want to talk to the road and transport organization. Within the municipality, they don't share data across different teams. How do you think about sharing from department to department and in city to city and so on? So that is a problem that we think there are ways to solve it, and it's solving it by actually going through what's the problem, how do you apply it, what kind of data do you need, and then get to an outcome. And slowly but surely, you're going to build that big data environment that has the capability. But definitely, it is a problem, not the fuel at this stage.
If I can share some best practice from a commercial perspective. I mean, let's say we've done our homework. So the data governance is in place, we have the data lake, and we've also certainly done in the last 5 years significant investment in the way we manage data and how we mine data. So then it all comes back to using the data to turn it into insights to solve priority business problems. And let's be honest, If we start with our core business, so let's leave the ecosystems aside for a second. What are the opportunities for deep learning? So there are a few. I think Ibrahim already talked about AI and smart network planning. Let me talk about our customers again. Yeah? So for example, deep learning in terms of churn prediction, deep learning in terms of allowing us to better simulate the purchase propensity for a certain product. Let's take Canada as an example. A great opportunity for TELUS is to cross-sell mobile into fixed and fixed into mobile. Yeah? So here are areas that are within the remit of our operation where we can demonstrate immediately a return on investment, either in terms of higher retained revenues or in terms of new revenue lines. Now, in order to demonstrate that and also to have the credibility to take the conversation forward and to make future investment, what needs to happen? And I really liked what you said, which is we need to build the culture, and we also need to make sure that we have the right level of leadership and the right level of collaboration and trust inside the business. And I think going back to your initial question, the shift change that I have seen certainly in the Vodafone Group is really moving from that early phase of a technological focused conversation to a culture focused conversation, and now actually being able to demonstrate the returns in terms of EBITDA margin, and then also getting the additional investments to grow. Yeah? And then the whole discussion also about the future becomes much more tangible, because you're not talking about the white elephants, but you're talking about how can I scale some of that success that I see right now in my core business. And then you're also more credible from a B2B perspective. I think the Nokia example earlier was fantastic, because they deployed 5G in their factory first, and then they're applying that conversation to the outside world. I think that is a principle that we should apply before, sorry to challenge some of the vendors again, Johannes did it earlier on, before we try to discuss the next white elephant. So demonstrating the return on investment, demonstrating the success, that is the opportunity to grow.
Okay, great. So I've seen that they have added time a couple of times, so to make it easy for them, let's spend maybe 2-3 minutes on a couple of questions that I think are important, and then we move to questions. The first one is, in terms of Safder, how do you think then in this case you can help the operator achieve that goal? Because it's quite complex, and we're saying AI is a must, it's difficult, and then it's easy from a vendor perspective, but then when you go from the other side, it's more difficult to implement. How do you...
Well, first, I'm glad you clarified that they've added time here, because I thought time must be going very slow.
Yeah, it kept changing.
Okay, so one of the advantages, I guess, Huawei has is the 3 different business groups that we've got on: the consumer, the carrier, and the enterprise. So because from the enterprise side, we're touching a lot of different industries, we have good insight into what's required there. And where we approach it, of course, we have what we call ABC plus 5G, which is AI, big data, and cloud plus 5G in terms of industry transformation. So there's some things that we're doing that we work directly with industries, we see what's happening, see what the problems are there, and all of that knowledge allows us to collaborate internally. If you go upstairs onto our booth there's how many were there? Probably about 15, 20 different use cases around 5G. Not necessarily that all of them are applicable in this region, depends on what the industry priorities are. But I can tell you for sure, some of those are applicable, and we have customers who are quite interested in them. Ultimately, they'll be delivered by operators, not by, so any of the 5G use cases will not be delivered by Huawei directly, right? So there's certain things that, and actually even on the enterprise side, we have a channel business, so it's actually not delivered directly from Huawei either. So both sides we're creating the market space for our partners, which are and customers, which are both the operators and the enterprise channel. So we do see a lot of what's available out there, and our teams not only provide the technology, but also work with a number of the operators in the region to help them prioritize use cases, develop business cases of where they're going to go with 5G. So part of the reason why last year we were talking about 5G and this year it's a reality, and all of the big questions that people had somebody asked me a question the other day, well, are we going to have to deploy so many more base stations because of 5G? Well, I said, why don't you go and ask the operators who already deployed it in the region? Because there's some of this scaremongering that happens, and then don't understand the difference in which spectrum is being used in different countries and why you might need more and why you don't. So our goal ultimately is to help the end customers, our customers, be successful and execute on those plans. I'm not knocking on any of the great strategy consultants that are out there, but translating strategies and plans into execution is what's key. Because only when customers execute do they have a chance of achieving the value that they expect to get. And when they execute is also the opportunity, the chance where vendors can also achieve some value. Doesn't mean we will, they have free choice of selecting who they work with. So it's all about execution and bringing it to those brilliant plans to reality.
Okay, great. So one last question to Jose then. In this case, we understand that, for example, vendors like Huawei and Ericsson and others that are big cap companies have the capability to do all these things in order to help the operators achieve their goals of digital transformation. But there is a lot of innovation coming as well from SMEs, and they want to get in and they want to participate in that ecosystem, but we're seeing a clash almost of legacy versus legacy in processes or operations versus new dynamic way of integrating all these new technologies. So from an ecosystem perspective that you're driving, how do you bridge and balance between the two?
I think that it has to be perceived not as a challenge, although in some cases those new companies and those disruptive ideas can be potentially some cannibalization to our traditional business, but as a way to enhance the relation with our clients. So in that sense, when we are creating and we're working on and we're creating that tech landscape, how we think that our companies are going to be within 5-10 years, we have to bear in mind that the companies that we are dealing with today are not going to be, in some cases, the company that we'll be dealing with in 5 years. And those companies will come from the innovation hubs, maybe Silicon Valley, China, etc. And we have to be able to understand what those companies need, because those are going to be the companies that once they become part of our product portfolio, they will help us to provide new services, are going to be the companies that are also going to bring also differentiation, are going to be able also to bring something new to our clients in terms of, it can be B2B or B2C, security, IoT, etc. So I think that we have the responsibility to support that community of that ecosystem of, let's say, startups and innovation, and facilitate the onboarding of that technology as part of our existing proposition.
Okay, great. So to be respectful of the time, we'll open it for Q&A. Tony?
Yeah.
Since you heckled everyone, you might as well do this one. Okay. No, there is a question there.
Yeah, hello. I'm Nilesh from Celine Global Technologies from US company. In the past, I've been involved in the complete digital transformation of Orange Mauritius, where we completely transformed the legacy IT system right from lead to cash, CRM, inventory, physical, logical, everything. More than 30 modules. So I would like to share some experience from there that the challenge, 1.5 years was the pre-sales cycle in a normal tender stage. And the biggest challenge what we saw, I mean, we had obviously a lot of third parties, our own systems. So the technology was obviously, the architect was first challenge. Second, after sorting that out, because we had the right vendors with us, the main challenge was the transformation execution, because it is more of the mindset where the operator is busy with meeting their own challenges in terms of, day-to-day operations and planning for the normal. Now, when the transformation comes, everybody loves the new system. It's like a wow experience, the way we used to call it. But nobody was prepared to work that extra mile. Because obviously it's like you changing your big building with 30 floors, you want to change the complete architecture, interior, everything. Obviously it will be a mess, when you replace the thing and build a new. So then we had to do a lot of mentoring to ensure that the teams of the customer are also prepared to accept those extra work and cooperate to make it a success. Otherwise, it would fail. What are your views on this?
What was the question?
Yeah.
So, as they say, the transformation begins in the mind.
You're
So, I
saying
mean,
that-
everybody has to be prepared.
So just like to recap, so the transformation that they tried in Mauritius, basically they had the new platform. It was a wow factor. Everyone was pleased, but they couldn't take it to the next step of understanding how it applies internally to their network development, how it applies externally to their customers, and then it dropped. So how do you make sure it doesn't fail?
Ibrahim?
The interesting part is, as my colleague from Mauritius shared, we did the same experience.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dirty air laundry publicly, but after 5 years, we did what was fantastic 5 years before.
Yeah.
So you realize you cannot scale it, move it forward. And the key thing is, I hate the word agile because it's abused. The key thing is you need interim deliverables that can live with the model.
Yeah.
That's why I say as technologists, we get so excited with the product. We don't think of the actual center of what is the model.
Impact on the day-to-day operations.
Let me add something here. So all of the digital transformation, maybe what is being missed necessarily is change management of any organization. So there's one part which is, and again, this is not new concepts. This replies, we've been doing this for a very long time, right? So wherever you're implementing some technology to change something, the change management and behaviors and how people use also needs to be taken care of. In fact, it's fundamentally important for it to be successful.
Look, Jay, just to mention kind of what we said in the beginning, digital transformation, the digital age is supposed to be the nimble and fast age, right? So you're supposed to be able to get to realizing specific outcomes, kind of like what Ibrahim said. Where are these interim outcomes? So that's the digital age, that's digital transformation. So if you're gonna go through an 18-month cycle just to do the preparation, another 2 years, that's not the digital age. That's not digital transformation. That's not realizing outcomes in a nimble and a specific way. So I think we would be missing the boat.
So
I would share maybe an additional observation because I totally agree. I mean, listening to what the gentleman had to say about the case of Mauritius, that was entitled digital transformation. For me, that sounded like a legacy technology deployment activity with all of the usual challenges. Yeah? So I think what we should reinforce, digital transformation is not a tech project where you're then reflecting whether or not it works well. It is actually a different mindset, and it starts with the culture. So change management for me was the right keyword here, and it would be interesting to find out who was the sponsor. So was that an aspect where the entire executive committee got together, saw the business interest, took the company on a journey, why this is important, and then everything else falls into place. So it sounds a little bit like we are still mistaking about what is an IT challenge in terms of a new technology deployment, I would say in a legacy world, and actual digital transformation, because that has to do with mindset, processes, culture, and technology.
So whenever this is the case, I mean, just to wrap up, that creates typically a digital divide. So that happened at the consumer level. Yep. There was a consumer digital divide. So we're on the edge of an industrial digital divide. And what I've heard from what you guys have said is AI is a must. And rather than deal with the elephant, we have to deal with small pieces, small results, create the digital transformation over time by doing culture change.
Can I add something? Because you're saying AI is a must, and I hear a lot of people saying AI is a must. But no one knows what AI is. And again, people start being afraid of what AI is. Coming back to technical level, so as I mentioned, until now, we've been building network and infrastructure with subject matter experts. They understand about the network. You have the radio access network expert, core expert, transport expert. Now suddenly you're introducing something called the data scientist into the mix, into technology. Data scientists are mathematicians. So they don't know anything about the network. And the network people don't know anything about mathematical models. So we're introducing a new element here, and we need to make sure that these entities or these people start talking to each other. And then the management also doesn't understand that. So there's it's a must. If it's a must, then the education needs to start now. And we need to start accepting that the old technology, network technology, is now a mathematician type of technology, and they're part of the mix as well. And this is something that many or very few people actually understand.
I have a slightly opposing opinion. Maybe not so slightly. I think AI tools will be like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I think we don't have to educate the world about the basic of mathematics and data science or about network. I think if what we should do is we should define interfaces whereby anyone can use data science and AI to solve their business problem. The key is, have they captured their business problem in a digital fashion? And then you can start the transformation. Then AI will be valuable because you had that cycle of improvement. But if what happened in my department, I'll be very honest, every team started hiring the data scientists. Security guys hired 5, the network monitoring guy hired 5. Next thing you know, they said, oh my God, I need more, I need 7 at least. I had 48, which is probably 48 more than most CTOs. What the hell am I doing with them? So I think it went on rampage. That's why we're talking to people like B-yond, a few other vendors in terms of, guys, you need to help us, whereby Jan could sit there and say, oh, well, I've got this business problem, and then give it to his SMEs or her SMEs, rather than their data scientists, because it's a pool of resources that should be spread out to understand the tools.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I think that's a great point, and we see that when we go. So actually, you're probably stealing some of the data science I need in Montreal. I need a few of those.
It's a hot commodity.
Well, it's not commodity.
Employee poaching is not allowed.
Very good. Now, so it's a good point, which is we see operators hiring those data scientists to try to understand what AI is, when actually you need a data scientist working with subject matter experts. Now, you can do that within your teams, and you can start doing those developments, or you can partner with companies that can do that for you. But that needs to be a cooperation so that you understand what the value is and what goes along with it. So my point was that until now, there's a very close control from the operators about what the technology is and how it works. And now we're bringing a new element which is outside of that control. So we need to bring that element into the whole ecosystem and create a level of trust that this tool is going to produce the effects that you want.
So, gentlemen,
could I do some demystification?
Very quickly, because we're
so
totally out of time.
I think it's due. I mean, the demystification from an AI perspective is really important. Look, I mean, we have been using AI for decision making for the last 20 years. So Ibrahim was telling already earlier on that if we have an Excel spreadsheet, we might run a regression model to take a decision. What's the difference now with the deep learning? The difference is that the accuracy and the lift of the model that I can achieve is higher. And that lift means cache. And that is the difference. Yeah?
But that means everything. I mean, at the end, the accuracy, if you come up with forecasting that has 70% accuracy, but AI makes it 95, that is the whole difference.
Yeah, so here's the demystification.
It's simple to say, but
direct link between the model and the return.
Exactly. Cool. So thanks for the audience for listening. Thanks for the panelists for your vision and views.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Obrigado.
Thank you. Danke.
Everybody, good to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.